You heard about that thing with Maine, the Maine governor there.
Tell me about it a little bit coming into this.
Mr. Trump basically said he's going to cut all federal funding to Maine if they don't comply with his order to basically remove men from women's sports.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate, like, you and I have talked a lot about both sides of Donald Trump, and the best thing about him is he will talk directly to somebody and just call them out on BS, whatever it is. Whether you agree about, like, pulling federal funding, I mean, that is a piece that he is able to control and that is able to get his will, but it is a federal mandate that he said women are only allowed in women's sports.
Right.
Tough concept. I know, but
it's a hill that they're just dying on. I don't understand it, but
the left's dying on this hill of the LGBTQ community, if you want to call it that, where apparently with polling 9.3% now identify with that. We can talk about that later, but it's interesting that the left governors are willing to die on the hill that men can kick women's butts in sports. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. And I'm glad Trump is calling them out and saying that, hey, you want to do a legal challenge? Go for it. You're going to lose. So it's in my power to do so.
Yeah, we'll be in power for 20 years if they keep at it. Anyway, welcome to the American Mandate, where we debate and discuss the issues shaping our country. I'm Grady.
I'm Camden.
So, Kash is in.
Kash is in.
Just got sworn in, I don't know, a couple hours ago.
Feels like it took way too long, but at the same time, I mean, we did get everyone confirmed rather quickly.
Yeah.
I will say. So, I mean, I think the charts are a little misleading of being like, we got these people in this fast, and
Mark Mullen
really
was really like, oh, look how fast we're doing it. It's like, it's an average.
I swear Mullen has way more skeletons in his closet because the amount that he was just like spiking the football after getting Kash in, you're going a little crazy for me, but I do appreciate that we got constant updates from him. That's the nice thing about X, is that now we have a platform that everyone is able to just, this is what's happening in Congress. I wish people were more transparent.
Right. So, Kash Patel, what are you excited about with him in there?
I'm just excited for what the left is not excited about. Rolling Stones kind of put out an article with former FBI people that said, FBI needs reform, it needs all this stuff, and then they specifically said these former agents didn't want Trump and Kash, though, and they said they were specifically unqualified, which is hilarious. Because
all the more reason to
we've had these issues with the FBI for years, CIA, all these three-letter agencies, and so the two people who finally are willing to go in and fix it, they're like, no, just not you. Like, we want someone a part of the establishment,
we want
part of the
somebody
Democrat.
We can control.
Exactly. We want to reform it to the same exact BS. We just want to hide the stuff better.
Right.
So I'm excited for Kash to go in, reframe everything, redo everything, make it an actual decent agency that serves the American people. But I'm also excited for all these lists to come out. I mean, he said he's going to get the Epstein list out. Pam Bondi now has it in her hand, the Epstein list now, officially for today. So
yeah, she said it was on her desk waiting for review, I think.
Which, all we want is transparency. I think it's funny when I see on X that the Democratic Party is like, look, we're excited for the list too. Look, Donald Trump was next to Epstein. Elon Musk was next to Epstein's like main person. And I'm like, if it comes out that Donald Trump did some shady crap, I want to know about it. I voted for the guy for a million other reasons, and also the main reason being Kamala Harris was on the other side.
Right.
But if Trump is a piece of garbage, I want to know about it. All I'm fighting for is transparency on the Republican and Democratic side, because I don't trust people in Congress. I don't trust people who have been in power for what feels like 50, 60 years.
That should always be the starting point. The starting point should always be, I don't believe you.
I don't believe anybody in Congress. No. And, I mean, Mitch McConnell just said that he's now finally done running. That was his 8th term. He'd run for 8 consecutive 6-year terms, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of forever politicians. I'm tired of three-letter agencies being in charge of everything. And we need a serious reform, and Trump and Kash are willing to do that with the FBI, and I'm excited for RFK with the Health and Human Services and so on and so forth.
And I feel like the MAGA base really wanted Kash specifically for accountability in, with the Epstein list and the Diddy list and the 9/11 files and the JFK files. But the other part of this is the FBI's main function is to stop this clear epidemic of violent crime in America. Violent crime is at an all-time high right now. And he's made it his mission to go after people.
Yeah, we're concerned with the Catholic Church for some reason, and we're concerned about going after and all these various Christian groups, but we're not concerned about, say, Black Lives Matter riots that happened, or variety of just issues that we're facing in our country, say legal immigration and everything. We're not concerned about that. We're not concerned about our safety in our country. We're just concerned about punishing the people who we're just normal citizens trying to live their day-to-day lives. Mm-hmm. I'm curious about, because one of the big points from the left that I think actually has some merit is Kash had said that they're going to, when he wanted to get into office, they're going to find the conspirators who basically lied to everybody, who lied to the American people through the media about the 2020 election with Joe Biden, and said that the Joe Biden election was rigged for Joe Biden against Donald Trump. And whatever you want to say about the election, whether you believe it was rigged with the votes, whether you believe that it was rigged because of the media and hiding Joe Biden's laptop, whether you believe that no rigging happened, how do you feel about Kash Patel saying they're going to go after people who conspired in this lie that he's paneling?
Well, I don't know if I love the rhetoric, but I feel like he cares about the Constitution, and I think he will uphold the law to any standard. And I think he recognizes that that's his job. He's made it pretty clear that, especially in his speech after being sworn in today, that him and Pam Bondi they answer to the Constitution, and then they're going to uphold the law. There's not going to be a 2-tier justice system. It's going to be a 1-tier justice system. It's going to be, you only have 1 tier of justice. That's the Constitution. We're going to follow it to a T. So I don't love the rhetoric. It seems like coming in, it does, I think the left has probably a point that he comes off as a loyalist to Trump and he's just going to do his bidding. But I think I'm more optimistic. I think he'll.
I'm optimistic too. I mean, the whole point that all the people that I wanted Trump to get into the cabinet, I don't want Trump loyalists. I want people that are going to push Trump's agenda that we voted for him for.
And they're qualified.
And that are qualified, which the left would say they're not, but they are.
All of them are.
And
very qualified.
But I want people who are going to push forth that agenda, that are not in the first turn going to backstab Donald Trump, but are they're first and foremost going to serve the American people and push forth the Constitution. And I feel like he's put a good cabinet together for that. So I'm hopeful for Kash. I think I'm ready to move on from 2020. I think Donald Trump doesn't help it. He keeps pushing forth on it. It's like, do you now think that it wasn't rigged? He's of course going to say, of course I think it was rigged. It was rigged against me.
He is incapable of admitting defeat. I think that's just who he is.
Yeah.
I think there's no real proof. He claims there's proof, but there's no real proof that it was a rigged election. I think he was told, even if he thinks that there is proof out there, I don't think he's seen it. I think he's too busy of a guy to have all this information. I think he has been told by people around him, oh, it was definitely rigged. And he goes, yeah, it was rigged. I don't think they really know this for sure. That's why they were beating the courts, and why people like Rudy Giuliani got treated so badly, because they made claims that they couldn't really back up with evidence. But there was election interference. That's undeniable. I mean, think about the Hunter Biden laptop story. That was, all these FBI agents, all these intelligence officers, all these Department of Justice officers came out in this massive email claiming this is disinformation, it shouldn't be paid attention to, and people like Mark Zuckerberg and, Jack Dorsey for Facebook and Twitter essentially blocked that story from being seen by the public for a whole week leading up to the election.
But that's the big thing, is there's election interference, basically what the Democrats claimed in 2016 with Russia. Except this time there actually was election interference, and I think that should have been the focus. But
Right.
I'm ready to move on from that. I think as far as the country needs to heal from that, and every election is going to be rigging. I mean, Hillary Clinton said that Trump was not a legitimate president. I mean, Bush and Gore, a lot more of an argument there, but still Bush won. That's what happened. And so, I mean, you can go back to Stacey Abrams with Kemp in the governor's race in Georgia. So everyone's going to challenge, but
I'm not opposed to a proper investigation of what happened. Maybe to get to the bottom of it, just say like, okay, listen, Trump, it wasn't completely rigged. You lost, but there was some level of interference, and we can hold those agents accountable if there is.
I think it's just too biased. I think everyone is on one side or the other. I think it's very clear. I think there's very few people who are actually going to be like just frank about it.
Agree to disagree, I guess.
And if they are, Trump's never going to accept that. And it's and it's just going to keep going forth.
Well,
but
I'm for transparency no matter what. I would like to know.
I agree.
And also, COVID, that needs some serious investigation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the whole reason you and I are as conservative as we are is because of COVID. I mean, I was moderate Republican beforehand, but I mean, even when I've like been in Flagstaff, Arizona for a while, and that area did not really get affected by COVID. I mean, there was
which I'm surprised because it's like a college town.
It's a college town. It's liberal, but I mean, we had there was for 6 weeks where you had a curfew, and that was when I was like, oh, this is BS.
Yeah.
And then being told you have to take the vaccine. That's BS. I mean, if you want to take the vaccine, all for it, supportive of it, to do that, your right to do that. Don't force people.
So was the Arizona governor not as strict as others?
Well, our Arizona governor was Doug Ducey. He was
at the time,
Republican.
Yeah. Okay.
But Arizona just didn't. Maybe I'm wrong, but it was more so left up to individual businesses, to my understanding. Every time I walked into a business, they were mad about you wearing a mask, and then other places they weren't mad about it. I remember I was sick one day, and I went into a Republican gas station, and I just wore a mask so I didn't cough in anybody's face, and it got so polarizing then because the Republicans that were in that business take that shit off, and I'm like, dude, you want me to cough in your face? I don't have COVID. I don't care about the mask. I'm just trying not to cough in your face. And it's like, no, we'd rather all get sick and not think you're a Democrat. I was like, understood. So
it was a very polarizing time. It definitely radicalized me more so. I mean, I was always a Trump fan, but I became less of a Trump fan during COVID. I think his handling of it was horrible. I mean, he put Mike Pence in charge of this whole.
I don't think that was the issue that I
don't put the blame on Mike Pence completely, but he put Mike Pence in charge of this handling of COVID, and it was a disaster. And all these, I mean, I was in New York, man. I was under the lockdown governor. What a horrible experience.
Presidents are always remembered from their greatest success and their worst moment. And I think the greatest success was 2017 to 2019 was probably the best time for our economy. You could say that there's parts left over from Obama and such, but keeping that up and keeping a solid economy and actually lowering the prices. I didn't see prices anywhere else as low as when it was under Trump's term. His worst thing was COVID.
Undeniably.
And that's the main issue. So
but now it's sort of a two-sided thing, and I think I'm guilty of this too, because when Joe Biden came in and he was mandating vaccines, when granted Trump didn't mandate anything, but he still brought this vaccine out in really record time, scarily record time. He put up Fauci, who I think is a war criminal, or not a war criminal, but crimes against humanity. I think he should be in prison. I think most people with common sense would think the same. Gain-of-function research, lying about the Wuhan lab.
But that's my issue with Trump, is that Trump did not know what he was doing, and so he delegated so much.
And I don't believe he deserves 100% of the blame. I think he was trusted. He just didn't know who to trust. I think by then he probably should have known.
I mean, but Bush doesn't deserve 100% of the blame for Iraq.
Dick Cheney does.
But Dick Cheney does, but Bush still is in charge. And that's the thing with Trump.
Absolutely. Trump's handling was horrible, there's no doubt about
it. And then Biden just made it worse because of Fauci was there. But, I mean, that's all past stuff. 4 weeks into Trump now.
Yeah.
What do you think of how Trump has done with his job so far?
Well, he's certainly moving quickly. I would say it's mostly good. There's been some things I don't like. Namely, I'm worried about the tariffs. I don't quite understand what his policy is on it. Is it a negotiation tactic or is it genuine economic policy? Because I believe that tariffs are very harmful, at least in the short term. And when you're trying to get out of an economy this bad, I don't think entering tariff wars with every country in the world is exactly the answer. But if it's a negotiation tactic, which it seems to be for Canada and Mexico, at least temporarily, and they're caving. And if that's, I can't deny that that's working if that's what it is. But I'm worried because, 10% on China, that's a superpower. They're not just going to cave. They're going to push back. The EU, why is he starting all these fights all at the same time?
And that's the issue you and I have talked about is individually, they all make sense, right? China, biggest one that makes sense. They're our rival as far as on the economic stage. They're the reason BRICS is going on and trying to make a gold-based dollar. Canada and Mexico make sense for our security. The EU, making them pay their fair share, makes sense. Doing them all at once in the first 2 weeks of your presidency, and we've seen the prices go up, especially in oil.
Yeah, we can see gas. Right down the road, gas station.
Like I know, like the Democrats are focusing on eggs, and I don't know why, because there's a clear, like the bird flu and everything. There's an actual issue with the eggs, and also that stuff is left over mainly from Biden administration as far as the prices go, as far in the grocery store.
Yeah.
But oil was a very sudden change because we get a lot of our crude oil from Canada. We make it into
gas
fuel.
Gas is one of the few products that you can feel, the fluctuativity of it rather quickly. Unlike food.
Take it, it's not as bad as what happened under Biden. I remember it was like 460, 470 at some point.
In some states, when we were driving through California a few months back, it was almost $6. That's just crazy.
California's always been screwed up, though, with this fuel pricing.
Yeah.
Because it's just all the regulations there. You'll never see really a true fluctuation there. But, there's a gas station down the road where it was $2.70, and now it's $3.60.
Yeah.
That's a huge change. Mm-hmm. If Trump's policy is just to put pressure on these countries, get what he wants, and then long-term, better for the country, it evens out, I'm okay with that. But if by the beginning of next year, we're still seeing prices rise, we're still having these issues, okay, now we're a year into Trump's term, that's on Trump. Yeah, and we got to figure out if the economy really had to do with Obama in his first term. Because that's Obama's claim. And there is some truth. The economy, there's only so much that a president can do as far as the economy goes, just on a base level. But this is a direct cause of his tariffs. And him going after every single country that has done us wrong all at once is kind of a risky maneuver, but we'll see if it pays off.
It seems to be paying off, but I do worry about the short-term pain over long-term gain. There's a lot of people that are, paycheck to paycheck. So, but it seems like a lot of car companies are coming back to the United States. It seems like steel companies are coming back. It seems like Apple, I just read today, is coming back. They're building more companies here, warehouses here, rather.
Yes.
That's a good thing. Tariffs seem to be working, but these countries that are fighting back, we're going to feel that.
Of course we're going to feel it. The thing is America can fight back for longer.
And it takes a while for these companies. They can't just come back overnight. They got to build. It's going to take over a year.
Yes. It's going to take a while for things to level out, and that's why I'm not too worried about it right now. But a year from now, 2 years from now, if we're still seeing these issues and when the midterms are coming up and we still have prices that are high and they're not Biden high, but they're still relatively high, I am going to question Trump because that is the main reason most people voted for him was the economy.
Yeah, it was the economy
and the
immigration
foreign wars.
And the forever wars, yeah.
Yes.
So what's your favorite thing he's done?
Favorite thing he's done? I have to say probably a return to normalcy. There,
in terms of DEI and all that?
Yes, partially to the DEI stuff. I've kind of gone back and forth on this, but one thing that I will always credit Obama for is there was a sense of leadership when he was in power. I disagree with 95% that he did during his presidency, and I think he did a lot of war crimes during his presidency. But there was a presence that he had, a charisma that he had that brought that leadership to the presidency, and he was respected. I mean, if I saw him in a grocery store, I'd be like, Mr. President, it'd be great to see him. Would not say the same thing about Bush. Would not say the same thing about Biden. Donald Trump going to the Daytona 500, going to the Super Bowl, calling in to Team USA. It cost a lot of money, and I think that's a bad look optically. And we can talk about his optics just because we're trying to cut out funding. But overall, it wasn't enough. It was better for our country. It was good to have a president that is active.
He's present
in what matters.
In Americans' lives. He's present.
And he feels presidential. And so and bringing back that normalcy of like, not hiding in the closet, because Biden's whole term, he was hiding in his room. I mean, the whole joke that like, oh, it's 7:00, Joe, you got to go to bed. Now Blinken's in charge.
He wasn't running the country, and everybody knows
and
that.
Anthony Blinken was.
Everybody knows that.
That's my guess, because Kamala's too incompetent to run.
It wasn't just Blinken. It was it was Chris Wray. It was Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. They all were pulling the strings. There's no doubt about it. Maybe Obama. I don't know if I really buy Obama.
I think that's too
I think
far,
Obama. I don't think Obama really likes Biden.
But I like the return to normalcy. I like because Biden never really pushed for negotiations with Russia. It was just Russia was the big bad. It was in Israel. Israel was all good, and we can get into that stuff later. But the whole point is we need to stop killing across the board. Soldiers are dying, children are dying. Innocent women and children are dying.
I'm tired of my taxpayer dollars going overseas, and we have so many problems.
I agree.
At home. So
I think there is some money going overseas. I think is fine. I think that stuff should be allocated in our defense budget, because I don't want to be an isolationist, but I am America first. Our border crisis is awful, and the fact that we send most of our good fuel, most of our resources overseas, and we're caring about other countries before our own country, that is a problem.
It's ridiculous.
I'm hoping Donald Trump, it seems like he's bringing that back and making it so America is first.
Absolutely.
And so, it's good. I mean, I think there is
So your favorite thing is probably the cultural shift?
The cultural shift, I would say, yeah.
Yeah. I would say my favorite is just having a transparent government again. Even at the most base level, even if they are just, being transparent about what they're doing good. But at the very, I don't remember really ever seeing Pete Buttigieg or, Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. It was always just the press secretary and Peter Doocy going at it maybe once a month. It's just nice to have. I mean, it's been 4 weeks, and I pretty much know every member of his top member of his administration by name.
I mean, think about East Palestine when that whole incident happened. Donald Trump beat Pete Buttigieg to it, which that's your entire job, Pete Buttigieg, and Trump beat you there. And honestly, he didn't do great in that scenario. It is nice to know your secretaries' names, so I will give you that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you said this to me, I don't know, maybe a month ago, saying I feel like maybe knowing the secretary's names is a bad thing. You really should know who they are. But I think that Trump has proven that knowing who they are means they're actually being transparent with the American people. They're actually showing hey, we're doing our job. These are the things we're doing. This is the most invested I've ever been in a cabinet confirmation for, all these cabinet members. That's never really happened before. I don't even really remember ever caring about anything like that.
I think there is two things can be true at once. All the way up until through Trump's first term and Biden, you don't care about the cabinet members. I mean, they exist. You care somewhat if there's a crazy pick with Matt Gaetz in his second term. You pay attention to those. I think what's different about this is now we know all the names. During Biden's term, you really didn't know the names. Even me being in politics, I could name you Anthony Blinken. I forget the guy who's defense, but I saw him everywhere. And
General Austin, yeah,
something like that. And then I can tell you about Pete Buttigieg. And the reason I can tell you those names is because Blinken was involved in everything, and Pete Buttigieg was there. There was just a complete, what's the word for it? Just complete utter failure in the Secretary of Transportation, and now the left is trying to prop him up of how great he is because there's been a lot of plane issues.
I hope they run him.
Here's the difference is that I don't think Sean Duffy could be doing a bad job. I think it's 4 weeks and it's too soon to tell. There is a lot of issues right now with the FAA.
Well, I don't.
But
think I don't think you can put that on this.
No, but what I'm saying is that doesn't make it so Pete Buttigieg just gets a pass for his 4 years. His 4 years were just awful, and that's what I said, that it's bad that we know his name.
Yeah.
But as far as Sean Duffy goes, I like that he's active on X and he's like saying, this is what's going on. I don't necessarily like how much he is pushing, not necessarily pushing back, but like he's responding to like everybody, it feels like. And it's like,
well,
Hillary Clinton posted.
It's just an extension of Trump. JD Vance is like this. Sean Duffy's like this. Pete Hegseth is like this. They're just kind of all inheriting his sort of pushback attitude. And I kind of enjoy it. I don't know if it's great, but I enjoy it in real time.
I enjoy it. I think this is definitely a more refined than the first term of Trump, because Trump was just all over the place. Whereas now Trump really, he doesn't tweet as much or repost, or whatever it is called now.
He does a lot.
He doesn't. No, he doesn't. Like during his first term, this is why because I was on the fence. I was pretty moderate, and his COVID, the way he ran COVID and the way he tweeted and his optics, I almost voted for Biden. I didn't, but I almost did, because Biden had, I mean, I didn't like the guy, but at least there was a consistency, and I was trying to I wanted the country back to normal. But looking at the policies he wanted to bring forth, looking at the people that were surrounding him, I sided against it. I voted Trump and then continued. And I don't regret that I voted for Trump. I could not have it on my heart that I voted for Biden and had those 4 years.
So what's the worst thing he's done?
Worst thing he's done? I think it's obvious. It's IVF for me. This being the first episode, my main driver, the reason I vote is based on abortion. I believe our job is to protect the unborn. I believe that in our country, there's rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And there has to be a starting point. You have to decide when life begins. Life does not magically begin when the baby's out of the womb. That's not a thing, because the baby can survive at 22 weeks. And you keep going, okay, if the baby can survive out of the womb at 22 weeks, let's keep going back. Oh, the heartbeat is happening at this point. Life starts at conception. So if that's the case, then we need to protect the unborn. So that is a base level cover. IVF, it is taking 8 to 12 eggs and sperm and putting it together without the act of any sexual act. And if it was one egg, one sperm, and putting that together, and then it survived almost every time, and there was like just some like whack thing, because we lose babies all the time and it was tragedy. If that was the overall case of it, then it just becomes, okay, this is just a religious argument. And I would get into that, saying I don't think IVF morally is the right thing, but on just a base humanity level and on a secular view, 80% of the embryos die. And it's just throwing everything at the fan, hoping something survives. And if we're looking at it, abortions last year were 985,000. It's more of July 2022 through June 2023. That was how much it died. If we use the whole argument of 7 to 8 embryos, that would mean 1.6 to 1.9 million embryos roughly died in that time period.
Jeez.
And that's IVF. I don't think, now you have made this argument off voice to me, which was Trump really probably doesn't know much about IVF. He probably just thinks that it's parents who can't have a kid because they're infertile or something, and they're just trying to have a kid.
He should know.
Road to Hell is paved with good intentions. It's a campaign promise. IVF is one of the most evil practices that conservatives fumble on, because they're like, we're so against abortion. IVF, I don't know if no, IVF is as evil, if not more evil, than abortion.
I wouldn't put it above abortion, because abortion is the act of cutting up and removing a much more grown baby. So I would put abortion at a higher level, but I would say they're both evil and should not be practiced under any circumstance.
The reason you can put both, like abortion, I agree with you. Abortion is more evil. The reason that there's an argument is because IVF takes more lives than abortion.
Sure.
And so that when
but I think you agree that killing babies is wrong under any circumstances.
yes.
But for me, it's not more evil, but it definitely feels worse when the baby's more developed. The more developed it gets, the worse it feels.
No,
for me.
abortion is worse than IVF. I'm just saying there is an argument that says it's worse. And
Right,
but
there's no real argument about it.
which,
it's just
if
it's
that's
evil.
if that's the case, then why are we like? Trump just said that our whole argument for Trump and pushing him to the evangelical side of the conservative movement was saying he's the most pro-life president of our lifetime, right? He overturned Roe v. Wade, which he did. He's done more for a pro-life abortionist movement, those two movements, than any other president. I would say this IVF thing brings him all the way back down to every other president.
I'd say that would be fair.
Because you need to know what you're signing. And if you do not, you're just as bad as Woodrow Wilson with a stroke and his wife signing all the policies for him. Like, you have to know what you're signing. And if he does know, like, I understand, like, Trump is bringing us back to the middle ground. I disagree on Trump with a huge majority of what he has to say, right? I mean, I think more than most people. You and I have talked often, and I've put you in a box sometimes where it's like you're defending Trump. I voted for Trump to bring us back to normalcy, to bring back the economy, and to continue what he was trying to do in his first term. I have serious issues with IVF, and that is hard for me to then think about my vote versus Kamala Harris. I'm not saying I would have voted for Kamala Harris, but there is a case that would have been made that I might not have voted if I knew he was going to push IVF. But I mean that.
I would love to learn more about it. I would say all of my knowledge on IVF is what you've told me, but I believe you. It sounds just as bad as abortion, and I'm not for that. So I say Trump really fumbled on this issue, and it seems like his base just blindly follows whatever he says. So yeah,
I would say I appreciate that both the abolitionists and the pro-life movement are heavily pushing back. Take it, the abolitionists never even voted for Trump to begin with, I don't believe, because of all these issues. And they've made the strong argument saying that I thought he was the most pro-life president of our lifetimes, and look what he did.
Yeah.
So that's my main negative.
But the thing is, he ran on this. So did they think he was just kind of full of it when he was running? Because they voted for him.
I mean, he said during his campaign he was going to end the Ukraine war right after he became the nominee. After he became president-elect, he would end it in 24 hours.
Right, that didn't happen.
He didn't do it. So promises made, promises kept. I thought it was more of like a general
he's kept
thing.
a lot of his promises. I'll give him that. But he hasn't kept some big ones.
I didn't really understand. I think I missed it that he said that I realized he was going to support the IVF crowd, but I didn't think he was going to make it more affordable to kill babies. That was something that I didn't appreciate. So I'm going to be very critical of him on that until he overturns it. And I'm going to continue to push for it. It's like, okay, he still hasn't overturned that executive order. But right. I don't know. What do you not like that Trump has done so far in his first 4 weeks?
Well, you know me. I'm a critic of Israel.
Do I?
I don't know. It's nice to meet you. I'm a critic of Israel.
Yes.
Especially Netanyahu. I'm a critic of the forever wars in the Middle East. And Trump's Gaza policy is just horrible. It's just bad. I don't want to be as dramatic to say that it's ethnic cleansing, but it is removing an entire group of people for the sake of, peace and put them where? No country should have to carry that burden, and no country wants to carry that burden. And also, Netanyahu has been encouraging us to get into all these wars. He testified in 2002 to go to war with Iraq, to overthrow Saddam Hussein, which we did a year later. Now, granted, he wasn't the prime minister at the time, but he was essentially second in command, and he came back not long after. So he seriously had pull in Congress when he testified to go to war with Iraq. And we did. And there was that doctrine to go to war with to basically do a regime change in 7 countries over the span of 5 years, which started with George W. Bush and Dick Cheney with Iraq and Afghanistan, and eventually carried over with Obama in Syria, Libya, Yemen. So the only one we haven't gotten to yet is Iran. And Netanyahu, to this day, would love nothing more than for the United States to go to war with Iran, which would just be a disaster. Millions of people have died over the past 25 years. It hasn't benefited us at all. And I don't like Trump's rhetoric on this Gaza issue. He wants to turn it into a fucking real estate development. Are you serious?
I mean, I think
I'll give him credit.
that's one of the things that he's joking about, I think.
I don't believe that. I'll give him credit, though. I will say, clearly, something else needs to be done.
Yes.
He's trying to do something different, but what he's trying to do is just stupid. It makes no sense.
I think that the main issue, I agree with you. It's pretty bad policy, but it is doing something different, I guess.
It's not America first.
When we're running this whole issue of Israel versus Palestine, I would rather be on the side of a pro-West country than a not. And Islam does not work as far as the West. That's not an excuse for, like, say, ethnic cleansing or genocide or anything like that. I think there is... The problem is that Israel relies too much on USA, and the USA relies too much on Israel for no reason. Like, we decide to support Israel through everything, and we're in control of whether or not they go in and do things. After October 7th, Biden should have just let Netanyahu go in and do what he needed to do to take care of the territory, take care of Hamas. That didn't happen. Now we're at a point where a lot of civilians are dying. There is the other argument, though, that Palestine is so outwardly supportive of Hamas. And they voted them in, and they're having parades celebrating people dying. I mean, that was just happened recently. They're still doing it. I understand there's a whole them versus us kind of thing. But it's evil.
There are so many children that live there that are being indoctrinated into this mindset.
This evil, yes.
It's evil. I don't have any love for Hamas. They're disgusting people. They need to be eradicated. October 7th was horrible. But that doesn't give Netanyahu the excuse to essentially wipe out everybody that lives there, which he would love nothing more.
I agree.
And also, my critique of Israel is broader than that. Their lobbyists, like AIPAC, have serious control over our politicians. I mean, think about Congress. I mean, I would say 95% of them have taken hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars from AIPAC over their career to be pro-Israel. And they don't have to register as a foreign lobby, unlike most.
No,
and also, Israel just undeniably has a serious control over U.S. foreign policy. They always have. And it's only gotten worse. And I think it's a one-sided relationship. I think it's parasitic. I would love nothing more for it to end one day, at least as it stands now. I'm not saying it needs to end overnight. I'm not saying we need to completely stop supporting them, but I would love nothing more over time to encourage them to handle their own problems and to back off from their relationship.
I think the other side to that coin, though, is, as you said, Israel wants to go to war with all these countries. And we've been stopping them from doing so. I mean, the amount of times that they've wanted to just full go into Gaza and we didn't let them.
We're their ally. We would have to go in with them.
We would not have to. I think that...
Well, we would have to with our bank.
Yeah.
And I'm not for that. I'm over it.
No, I agree with you. I'm not here as a Netanyahu or an Israel apologist, right? I'm not here to say that I support the IDF through and through and I agree with all their actions. I don't. There is a piece to it, understanding that there is urban warfare. That doesn't excuse for children and women dying, right? That's just, there is a casualty of war.
Absolutely.
I understand that's not a good excuse, though. I don't see a two-state solution being acceptable here. I think the best case scenario is Israel taking control of its borders completely and trying to make one state of Israel. And I'm tired of this whole split-off country in there, and it's just constant war of it. I don't think that is the best option for Palestine. I don't think that's the best for Israel.
I don't think either are very realistic. I don't know what the answer is. But the answer isn't to go in and kill everybody.
If they want to make a 2-state solution, let's say that's all northern.
If they want to redraw the lines, if they want a 2-state solution, I'd say that is the best solution.
But I think there's also like they gave Gaza away. I mean, they literally took people. The Israel state took Jews from their homes in the Gaza Strip and moved them to give that land to them. And look what they've done with it. It's barren. They voted in Hamas, and they attacked Israel.
Like
that is what they did with it.
I don't excuse what Hamas did. But.
And Israel keeps giving land up. So I just don't. At some point, there has to be just it's a tough decision, but at some point, there has to be a decision.
And Trump's
one country has to be in charge of it.
And Trump's made it. He basically told Netanyahu. I listened to a phone call he had with somebody from Fox. I can't remember his name. And he basically said, yeah, hands are off. Go ahead, do your thing. And you know what that means. They're just going to go in. It's going to be a lot of death. And Trump will inherit that.
I think he will inherit it because no matter what you do, even if you said that, well, no, Trump just says, I'm out of it. I'm not doing anything. He can stop it. And so that's the other issue. It's like...
It's going to be horrible optics for him going forward.
Which it's... I guess
it's a
get
tough situation.
All the bad optics out of the way.
It's a tough situation, but I will hold it against him.
Yeah, I will too. I think the concern is we never got over Biden's exit of Afghanistan, right?
Right.
I do worry him just letting the reins off here. We won't. Something has to happen. It has to happen during some presidency.
I didn't have a problem with Biden leaving Afghanistan. I had a problem with how he did it.
No, but what I'm saying is that this is going to be a stain on his presidency. To say that, like, I'm not saying you're saying that, but for someone to say that, oh, at least it's happening at the beginning of his presidency so things can gloss over, this will be a stain on his presidency. And that will affect our elections going forward. Yes, that will affect the midterms. That will affect Vance getting elected. I'm concerned about it because I don't want to see more death on that. That's my thing. Like, you can talk about Ukraine and Russia. We can talk about Israel and Palestine. Overall, we need to stop the killing over just across planet-wise. It's going to continue to happen.
We can agree on that. So what do you think of Ukraine? What do you think of the negotiations going on right now? What do you think of, him calling Zelensky a dictator? What do you think of him excluding them from the table, excluding the EU and NATO from the table at the moment?
I think a couple things can be true at once, as I said previously. I think excluding Zelensky from the table doesn't make sense. You can have him sit there and just tell him, because if he wants to storm out of the room, that's on him, right? Of saying that, oh, I don't agree with this. I think that they were making decisions for me. At least you brought him to the table. It's just bad across the floor to not have him there. I don't believe he is a dictator. But I do understand Trump saying you need to have elections immediately after this war ends, making sure that is so he doesn't become a dictator. So of course, martial law has happened, and Zelensky is in charge.
Very low approval rating.
Yes, but Russia was the one who was the aggressor and attacked Zelensky. Now, I'm not very happy with Zelensky. I don't like that Zelensky. Like, I just listened to the Marco Rubio interview where Marco Rubio is talking about, they were agreeing with us about rare minerals and how there's because the whole rare mineral argument propped by Rubio is that we then have an interest in securing Ukraine if they're giving us rare earth minerals. That makes a little bit more sense to me. Zelensky then went back to his Congress and then said, oh, I shut down the deal. I didn't like it, even though behind closed doors he said he did. Zelensky's a bad guy. Zelensky goes around and props around and says how bad Trump is. He goes to the EU. He's like, I need more money. He is corrupt. I'm not pushing that against. I think calling him a dictator
is part
of
the war. Yes, he's on the other side of this. He deserves a seat at the table.
Calling him a dictator just is unnecessary.
But the other side of that is, listen, this is not a war between Ukraine and Russia. Let's be real. This is a proxy war between the United States of America and Russia, the two superpowers in this conflict. These are the real big boys at the table, and they have to work it out.
And Ukraine doesn't have anything
is really
to add.
Irrelevant in terms of the negotiation process. But
agreed.
This is early negotiations. I'm hoping NATO comes in. I'm hoping the EU comes in. I'm hoping Ukraine comes in, because they have to agree to end it. Otherwise, it won't end. Now, we can back off. We can stop supporting him, and he'll get taken over eventually. But we would rather just end it now.
The United States needs to end the war, and however Trump thinks to do that, I'm in support of. If he thinks that the best case scenario is to send his guys over and to go and talk with Putin and be like, this is what we think is best, that is the best case scenario, because there's other optics going on. I mean, the Prime Minister of the UK is saying that, oh, yeah, we're thinking about dedicating troops.
Yeah.
You're dedicating troops
The
to
EU
a non-ally.
would love nothing more than to keep this war going.
Why are we putting this much money into a non-ally? Like, I understand the optic of it of being like, oh, we don't want Russia taking over Ukraine, and they might go into Poland and like all that. So whatever you think about that doesn't matter. We need these border states. That's what matters. So United States needs to get out of Ukrainian politics. Russia needs to get out of Ukraine, and Ukraine needs to be self-governed, and it can be influenced by Russia.
It was in 2014.
It was, and the United States meddled.
Democratically elected governor or president Yanukovych, or what's his name? Yanukovych, sorry, was overthrown in 2014 with support of the United States of America's State Department.
Yeah,
Hillary Clinton dedicated hundreds of thousands of dollars, encouraged this coup, and the democratically elected president was overthrown. The person that came in, and keep in mind, Yanukovych was making a deal with Russia. They were starting to work together for the first time ever.
Yes. Well, I mean, the reason they were working together is because he was a very pro-Russia, pro-Russian president. I mean, that's what he's going to be. So, and the United States wanted to meddle and wanted someone who was pro-West.
Because they don't like Russia. Because Obama's and Bush's administrations thought of Russia as the enemy. They made a promise in the 90s when the Soviet Union fell. They made a promise in the 90s when the Soviet Union fell that essentially NATO would not spread an inch further east towards Russia. They broke that. They included 10 more countries. And when Putin came into power, he basically said, "What are you doing? You broke your promise." And Bush treated him like shit. And then Obama treated him like shit. And then they overthrew Yanukovych. And then when it came down to the wire, when it came down to, the U.S.'s involvement in Ukraine, NATO's involvement in Ukraine, Putin wanted a promise that they would not include Ukraine into NATO. And they would not make that pledge. And that is why he invaded. I don't agree with him invading. But think about it from Putin's perspective. His biggest...
the people who call him his enemy
treaty that
want to move in.
Right, the treaty that is literally created for the reason of opposing him had now spread to his bordered country, where that country started.
Yes.
That is the reason why he invaded. Now, I don't agree with that, but that's why he did it.
The big...
So this didn't start in 2022. People
right.
And just like the Israel situation didn't start on October 7th. There's a history here.
Yes.
And people ignore that on both of these wars.
The big thing with it is we need to stop playing this game as we're pro-Russia or pro-Ukraine, pro-Israel, pro-Palestine. It's not helpful. The whole thing is end the killing. That's what we should be striving for.
Exactly.
And United States out of world politics. I mean, think about how long it took us to get into World War II. And now we'll just jump in any war just for laughs and giggles of it.
World War II was the catalyst for all of this. People look back at World War II with such, rose-colored glasses, saying like, "Oh, World War II, everything has to be looked at it like World War II." Like they forget that we dropped 2 atomic bombs on civilians.
Yes.
They think of Truman as this great president, and I don't fault him for being in a difficult situation, but it's like the U.S. government has always been essentially gangsters their entire since the 40s. Now Trump is using that power to get America's interest for the first time ever, really, which I appreciate, but I don't like his rhetoric about it. I mean, how do you feel about the railroad thing? Do you think that's a good thing?
The rhetoric?
No, just that deal. Do you think that's going to destroy Ukraine's economy? I mean, we're taking what makes them essentially worth anything away from them. I would love my money back, but it was never a loan. This was
I
Biden's
mean, it's
fault.
it's asking for more than you're gonna get.
It's making Ukrainian people suffer, which they're the real victims
Not
of this whole war.
no. I mean, because if taking some rare minerals makes that
500 billion worth. That's a lot.
it's not going to be 500 billion worth. That is the starting negotiation. That is someone saying,
I hope so.
Hey, here's my $10,000 beater car, and it's like, I'll give you 6. Like that's what we're doing here. And as Marco Rubio said, actually quite well, it makes it so it matters to us security-wise, and it's in our interest to keep Ukraine safe because of the rare minerals that we're getting from them. That's the whole point of it, and it makes it kind of like a proxy bit of like, okay, it's in our secure interest to try and keep Russia away from you. That's why we don't have to do this whole treaty, bringing them in the NATO. We don't have to sign this whole pact to be like, oh, we will keep Ukraine safe no matter what. So it makes some security for Russia, makes some for Ukraine, and yes, you have to sacrifice your rare minerals.
Right.
Sucks to be you, but that's how it's going to happen. Unless you want to be part of Russia again, that's an option. I don't think you want to be part of that, and frankly, I don't either.
It's a tough situation. It just makes. I do think it will have an impact on the Ukrainian people, but I guess that's what comes with it. But I'm just tired of the suffering. Like I said, the Ukrainian people are the real victims here, and I would love for both of those wars to end. I'm hoping Trump keeps through on his promise of America first, but I guess we'll see.
Any final thoughts? We've kind of been running for a little bit.
No, I think it's interesting times. It's optimistic times, but it's not perfect.
It is interesting. It feels like with Biden, we had a news story every day. I'm not saying there's lack of news, but it does feel like things have started to level out a bit. And in a way, that's good. We'll see if that continues. We'll see if our country moves forward in the correct direction.
Well, in a couple weeks, he's going to address Congress, I believe, for the first time.
There is issue with, like, I believe it was a poll that came out that 51% think that we're running in a direction of being less constitutional. That concerns me just as like public policy. Then again, polls during Biden said that we were very low as far as patriotism. It was like 30% or something. I don't want to quote the actual study because I don't remember it, but we do have a problem with patriotism in this country. I think overall Trump is bringing it back to that normalcy, and gotta hope for the best for this country.
Amen.
Anyhow, it's interesting. Our first episode's going to be on Friday because we do podcast weekdays. So anyhow,
thank you for joining.
I'm Camden.
I'm Grady.
And we'll see you on Monday.